Hi guys, Mermaid Elodea here. I am actually doing this video on my almost 1 year tail review for my MerNation silicone tail. I originally purchased the basic silicone tail option back when it was $1,200. I was originally going to paint it myself, but after many experiments that MerNation was kind enough to wait for, I determined that I would not be able to make the paint adhere as well as they could, so they were kind enough to send me a second invoice after I'd already paid for my basic in order to pay for the paint. It still was much less than the cost of a custom tail, and I couldn't be more happy or more grateful that they were willing to do that for me. Otherwise, I would have been kind of in a pickle. So I sent my first email to MerNation on March 17th, 2015, so that's almost 1 year ago today. I paid for my tail on March 20th. I received an email on April 4th saying they'd started my tail, and even with all of the changes to the paint and everything, it was actually done on April 7th. So they made and painted it in less than 3 days. They actually had to wait on me in order to send the tail out because I had asked them if I could go ahead and paint for the shipping and the paint in one sitting, and I went ahead and waited until payday on April 15th. So they were actually done over a week before I finished paying for it, which is unheard of. I received it on April 21st, and I have been in love with it ever since. Like I said, it's the basic tail. It's bright yellow. The paint is all the way through. And then it has 2 shades of orange to kind of blend it. My original inspiration was a goldfish. So I wanted to just go over a review of how my tail has held up. And when I first got it, I was really impressed with how sturdy and thick it was. In fact, the scale body, from what I've noticed over the year that I've had it, is thicker than other scale bodies I've seen. That can create a little bit of a roll when you're sitting up because the tail doesn't bend with you quite the same way that like a thinner tail might. But for what I need it for, which is working with children, a lot of swimming, dry land events, the whole party gamut, festivals, fairs, I really need it to be a tank, and it is. I have their classic scales, basic fluke, no blended waste. The thing that I actually liked about them when I got it as well is that they add 2 or 3 inches to your top waist measurement, and they send the tail like that with instructions to trim it down. So you never end up with a tail that's too short. Mine was up all the way under my bust line when I first received it, and I took off 2 rolls of scales, so it actually comes up a little higher than it would have, which would have been too short if they had followed my original measurements. So there is literally no way that the tail can not fit you. You also send them a duct tape dummy instead of just measurements, and they fit their scale sheets around that like a body cast. So it fits amazingly well. It looks almost exactly the same as when I first received it. It's kind of astounding. My tail has been through a lot. I do work for I actually manage the Sacramento Mermaids with our owner Mermaid Lucky and my co-manager Mermaid Ember. And we have done photo shoots, we've done birthday parties, bartending gigs, fairs, festivals, conventions, photo shoots. And I actually have a couple of horror stories. I've put it on halfway in my car on the street outside of a venue. I have had to put it on in a 2-inch deep river. And then when the photo shoot moved, I actually had to army crawl in it almost a quarter of a mile. You would think that the paint would show a lot of wear and tear at this point, but I don't even have any damage to the clear coat. There is nothing wrong with the paint. We do a lot of dry gigs where we sit in tail and have children and convention goers come up to us for photos. So I'm often in a situation where I don't have the opportunity to move or the water to kind of cushion and pad my tail. I might be sitting on something sharp or rough and I have people coming up and just grabbing the tail, stepping on the tail. I've had people step on it in high heels, which is really terrifying. And nothing to really cushion it. No, none of the buoyancy of the water, none of the ability to swim away. So it's really performed amazingly well. I am actually going to go ahead and get my other camera and show you a little bit about what it looks like right now. And then I'll be right back. Okay, so you're gonna have to kind of bear with me here. My other camera was dead because I'm the best at planning. So I'm doing this on my cell phone. So here is the fluke, my little starfish. You can see that the paint is in perfect condition. There's no tears, no holes, not even any scuffs. I do have one tiny little hole that kind of opened up along one of these seams. I was just able to put a tiny little dot of silpoxy in there, and it closed it right up. It was my own fault because I was hanging it, so it was putting a lot of pressure and kind of compressing this together. Scale body, again, you can see there's nothing. It's in perfect condition. It looks like a brand new tail. There's some glitter on it, but glitter happens in this line of work, as you all know. I'll go ahead and turn it over now. Oh, this poor baby. I know so many people are so gentle with theirs, and I stopped being gentle with mine probably 8 months ago. I'm sorry, Tail, and I'm sorry, MerNation. I stand in it sometimes, don't judge me. So you can see the seam is right along here. Well, you can sort of see. It's actually extremely well blended, especially for the cost of this tail, you guys. I mean, I have to remind you that it was $1,200, and the seam looks more like a lateral line on an actual fish than a seam line. Here you can see where I cut the waist in little scallops, and you can see how thick it is. Now, on the inside, one thing that I've noticed is different from some of the other, maybe more expensive tails. It's not quite as finished on the inside, which is something that I don't mind at all. It doesn't affect the performance in any way. You can see that the seams overlap each other quite a bit. I actually have some dirt on my lining right there. That's my fault, though. But they're actually very smooth and comfortable because of how far they overlap. They actually kind of wrap instead of just being stacked up there. In spite of how thick it is, it's actually really easy to get on. At this juncture, I can get it on pretty much anywhere. My only complaint, I think, would be with the monofin. And that is really the fault of the type of monofin and not anything to do with the construction of the tail. You can see that because of the way MerNation does their flukes with these big, strong ribs right here, you can't see the monofin at all. Which is especially surprising because the wonderful Rapid, as you know, has those huge plastic ridges, which are still on there. They're not filed down, but you cannot see them, which is cool. I'm going to go back to my computer and we will talk more. Okay, so like I said, the only real issue that I have with the tail is the monofin that's inside it. MerNation gives you the option included in the cost of the tail of having either the Finis Wave, which would be for smaller feet and is a smaller blade, so it gives you more of that flowy look, or the Finis Rapid, which accommodates a larger shoe size, and the blade is larger, so it has more propulsion, and also the fluke or caudal fin doesn't bend as much, which I prefer because actual caudal fins of fish are for propulsion and they don't flow. That's why they have ribs. So I went with the Rapid option. You can, like with most tail makers, you can request any monofin that you want, but for an additional option, I believe you'd have to pay for it or order it and have it sent to them. I think that perhaps some of the flat fiberglass bladed monofins might be a better option because they all have the built-in foot pocket already. So you buy your monofin to the size of your foot, the foot pocket is what it is, and there's no fiddling around with the straps. The rapid straps inside of a tail are a delight. You have to fiddle around, make sure they're not under your feet, because I have mine pulled all the way tight. Since it is kind of a men's size monofin. Sometimes the straps can end up under your feet. That gives you a wonderful crease that you don't feel until you take it off 2 hours later and all the blood rushes back into that spot and you realize that it hurts really badly. Also, they tend to slip because of the way they're attached. There's a hook in the middle that bends freely, then they're attached on the side with 2 little clips that also bend freely, so they're basically hinged. So those things want to come off the back of your foot so badly that it's a wonder that they stay on at all. So that would be my one complaint. I think for my next tail, I would probably order a competitor if I was going for looks. But because I do travel a lot with it, I've actually taken it to, we road trip to Montana. We swam in Great Falls at the Sip and Dip Lounge where Daryl Hannah swam. They have a beautiful pool with a window that looks into their bar. It's basically like an aquarium for mermaids, and it was an outstanding experience. So it's traveled out of state. I took it up to Puget Sound in Seattle to visit Mermaid Elodea, and I really wish it had a smaller monofin in it just so I could pack it. I think I'd be willing to sacrifice some of the rigidity of the look and the propulsion because I do travel with it so much. So I think for my next tail I might end up looking at like a shooter or a finished trainer, in spite of the fact that it would give those floppy little tips that I don't really care for. So yeah, this is kind of an overview of my tail. I know it's kind of weird that I'm sitting here on my living room floor. This is the only place there's light right now, so sorry. If you have any questions, let me know. I've loved my experience with MerNation. I got a top from them. I've been in communication with them about random things ever since I ordered from them. They always answer. Even if you're not ready to order, they will respond to you and exchange multiple emails. And my order process, which actually went really smoothly because I knew exactly what I wanted. It wasn't fancy. And I didn't really care how they executed it. We still ended up exchanging about 60 emails in the very short time between me asking about the tail and having the tail. So I would definitely recommend them as a company, especially if you want something durable with a quick turnaround time, reasonable cost, and like a nice graphic shape. I know some people prefer the more dramatic looks or the more fantastical looks of some of the other tail makers. I think those are incredibly beautiful. But I think my tail is beautiful too. And for a tail that really needs to stand up to a lot as a working mermaid or somebody maybe who swims a lot, I think MerNation's a great choice. Thanks for watching. Thank you, MerNation. I love you.